Mr. Prime Minister Patrick Achi, thank you very much for your time and welcome to Washington.
Thank you very much.
Why, sir, have you come to the United States? What is it at this moment that is important for Côte d'Ivoire to accomplish in Washington and in its relationship with the United States?
I came to the United States on the invitation of the Atlantic Council to speak about the Côte d'Ivoire 2030 economic program, a strategic plan that we're implementing on the National Development Plan 2021-2025. And since the week before, a congressman delegation led by Congressman Mix was in Côte d'Ivoire to go around our relationship and to see also the Flint Rock project to train military people in the military academy that we have over there, and to go around and over all the economic relationship that we been moving between us, mainly on MCC, Millennium Challenge Cooperation. You know, the U.S. gave us $525 million grant on education projects, skills, as well as transport projects. So we were able to meet over there, and we started to discuss over there about various issues. And since he knew that I was coming to the state, he found that interesting that I could also meet other people in the Congress to share our discussion over there. We also had a delegation from the administrators of the board of the World Bank, and finally the Chamber of Commerce of the U.S. Issued a guide for American investors wanting to invest in Côte d'Ivoire, and the guide was coming out. They wanted me to be there so that we could present the guide to the private sector people from the U.S. So that's the main reasons why I came.
Ukraine is, of course, in the headlines. The war and Russia's invasion of that country, and this has had an impact on Africa, whether politically, economically. Can you help us understand your government's thinking around supporting the condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine at the UN? Now, of course, 27 countries voted for the resolution. The African countries that abstained, South Africa being amongst them, but they cited historic ties with Moscow. They also mentioned the fact that they are members of the non-aligned movement. Your country is also a member of the non-aligned movement. Why did your country vote for the resolution?
I mean, our country has always been consistent on its position on the United Nations, backing up, protecting the frontiers of any country and being against any aggression and being against any invasion. So we've been sticking to what we've been doing all along history. So for us, there's nothing new. It's a normal position that we've been taking. We found ourselves in the same situation for other countries. It will be the same.
There's been a lot of attention over the years on African countries' ability to export to the West or to Europe. But now with the advent of the Africa Free Trade area, which has been in effect for well over a year now, what has this free trade zone accomplished so far for your country in terms of jobs, economic growth, investment, exports, and just for your country's general economic prosperity?
I think that we are at a very early stage of the implementation of the continent free zone, and we're getting ready ourselves internally to be able to have a private sector that is competitive enough to be able to go after this market. Because yeah, it's a market, but there will be competition in this market, and there's so many countries that will try to share the market. And then I think that the first thing to do is to prepare yourself, and most of the countries are on this trend, which is every single thing that you can do to make your companies, your private sector competitive. That's the stage where we are. And as far as exchanging with other countries, you should certainly know that we already have a Western Africa economic community, which means we have a free trade among these 15 countries. So this is something that we're used to now. It's going to the whole continent. the market is going to be much bigger, 1.3 billion consumers. It's major issues. But when we always stick to, business basics, which means we will not be able to access this market if you're not competitive.
Mr. Prime Minister, of course, one big economic development in recent months for your country has been major offshore oil and gas discovery. This comes at an interesting time, of course, because of the embargo on Russian oil and gas. So there is a shortage in the world right now, but at the same time, there is also a discussion in the world to move away from oil and gas to renewables. How does your country navigate that? Because there might be an opportunity here for your country and many other African countries who do see a potential market outside of the continent. How do you navigate these trends?
I think that so far the gas that we're producing is used for electricity production mainly. We're not importing gas from somewhere else, and we're not also exporting the gas. All the gas is used to the use of the gas-fired turbine that we have to produce electricity. And for sure, in the next 2030 objective is to have a 40-60 mixed energy mixed, which means 40% renewable, hydro or solar, and 60% gas. As you can imagine, it doesn't just change from one day to the other. It takes a little bit of time, and at the same time, we have a need for power so that we can really attract the private sector and increase investment, which is key. We have a lot of youth, and jobs is a real issue for us. In the next 10 years, we might have 10 million kids on our hands that should get jobs. And there's no other way you can be able to meet that challenge if you don't have massive private sector investment to create these jobs. And these private sector people who are coming, first thing they're asking for is, being able to have access to electricity at a cheap price, being able to access basic infrastructure, road, port, airport, so investing a lot of that. So we have the objective to improve our energy mix, but also we have the constraints of developing at a very fast rate our private sector so that we meet other challenges. We think we'll be able to get there.
To return to the instability that we're seeing in Eastern Europe, but we've also seen a lot of tumult in your neighborhood. Mercenaries, the United States believes that the mercenary group Wagner is fueling a lot of the instability we're seeing. This is on your northern border, and your country has, of course, beefed up security there. Can you help us understand what steps your government is taking, what kind of security steps you're taking, but also whether you're concerned about groups or a group like Wagner capitalizing on any political tumult or dissent you might have in your own country?
I think that yes, we have had terrorism on the Sahel region for a while, and we know that it's a security issue that we have to deal with, and we've been training our army people, we've been trying to buy equipment to make them ready to be able to face this challenge. Sure, we need help from friends because we are driving money that should be used to improve the life of people, invest in social infrastructure like school, like health center, like roads, so on and so forth. And if you divert this money to invest into buying military equipment, hiring more troops, and buying intelligence equipment to be able to secure your country, naturally it's a high pressure on your finance. Now, what we've learned out of this crisis, getting on the neighboring countries that we see, is that very often the root cause of this crisis come from the fact that a numerous amount of youth, 77% of the population in my country is aged under 35, and half of the population is aged under 25. Now, when you have that amount of youth, if they do not have a visibility on their future, if they don't have hope, if they can't have a job, then this youth, which is supposed to be a huge opportunity, can be a huge threat and can bring social distress or any kind of crisis, political and social crisis. So that's why we're so keen to develop the private sector so that these kids find jobs. In the northern part of our country, which is a bordering neighbor of this country where security is really more of a concern than ourselves, we're trying to improve livelihood of people, because it gets bad when people can use your own people to get insecurity in your country. But as long as your people and the youth in your country can have a decent life, can go to school, can access basic needs like electricity, transport, food, and they feel good at home, it's very difficult to have them get into any destabilization. So we're concentrating our investment and this borderline also to bring a better life to people, which is a complementary, which is complement to what we're doing in the military side. Because in the long term, the issue is really to have people feeling good at home. And I think that as far as the Wagner or any other issue like that is concerned, we really linked and tied to the position of the ECOWAS, which is the West African community that stand to have a free country being able to defend themselves, and we're asking for friends, allies, to help us train our people and defend the country, and I think that that's where we stand.
I want to talk a little bit about the global competition between the United States and China to essentially, be Africa's best friend. Can you tell us about your discussions here in Washington? What are the Americans telling you about what they're prepared to do to counter China in your country and in your region?
I mean, the discussion that we had didn't have to do with countering, anyone. I think that we've been having long-standing good relationship with the U.S. and they have been allies for many years. I think that themselves, like ourselves, are in a free economy, liberal economy. So our countries are not really looking at this country or this country. We're just trying to develop our country. We're trying to build infrastructure. We're trying to build schools, we're trying to attract investors, and we're attracting investors from all over the world to develop our country. We're concerned that our next generation youth be able to find a country where they can have a decent life, and this is our main concern. And I think that the country has been always, at least our country has been always to investment from all over the world, being the US, Europe, India, Brazil, Turkey, I mean, people coming from all over the world. So we're not making any distinctions, and we don't think that because people invest in your country, you owe them a particular thing or you belong to them. It doesn't work like that. It's a free business environment that we're working in.
Have you been asked here in the United States about the political climate in your country right now?
Yes, I think that we've had very interesting discussion. We've asked them to give us support to improve our security. We've also discussed with them various issues on the internal situation in our country, mainly that has to do with democracy, reinforcing democracy, human rights, and we gave them the situation, which is been really improving so well, so fast. The late legislative elections that we do that was held in the country were free and fair. For the first time, all political parties were able to participate. For 20 years it was very difficult, and lately, I mean, we had a very large dialogue with the civil society and the political parties. 26 organization of the civil society and 21 organization, political party or political groups, and that ended up finally with all of us signing an agreement to say that the country is definitely back to normal, things are working fine, we have, freedom of speech, we have reinforced democracy, we have the same objective, which is going to the essential. The essential is developing the country so that we bring better life to people. We prepare our kids for the battle, the economic battle in the world for the next generation, talking about digital economy, talking about getting our key sectors into the world value chain, getting about improving the education, as I said, being connected to the world. And it was very good to see all of us being concentrated on key issues that are of main concern to our nation and to its future.